In this video lecture, we're going to add a little CSS code to adjust the look of our lists. So if we're going to add CSS, I'm going to put it here in the head. I'm going to say style type equals text/CSS, and then of course our closing style tag. And I'm going to open the little browser here within my text editor, just so we can kind of see the changes as we go. Now, you remember I recommended before that if you change the style of the bullet, you should do it in CSS. Let's do that first. So I'm going to take an unordered list here. We're going to use the unordered list as our selector. And there's our curly brackets that will surround our rules. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the list style type rule. And here are a whole bunch of list style types that we can set. So, for example, if we simply set this to square, once I save, you'll notice we get the square bullets over here. If I set this to circle, we get the circle bullets. And if I set this to disk, we get the filled in bullets, which are the default. Oh, and let's get rid of this right there so we don't have any confusion. All right, and I'm going to change this up a little bit. You may be surprised at what I'm doing at first. I'm going to set the list style type to none. And I'm going to change this back to an unordered list. And notice that removes the bullets altogether. I'm also going to set the padding and the margin to 0. We'll talk about padding and margin more later, but you can see that's eliminated the space between the left-hand margin of the page and the list content. Now, what I want to do is I basically normalize the list to 0 here. What I want to do is I want to set up a custom bullet. In the folder for this particular section, I have something called star.png. That's a small little ping graphic that's going to serve as our bullet. Now, we put the bullet on the list item. So I'm going to go ahead and use the list item selector. And on the list item selector, I'm going to code, first of all, the background image. And with the background image, I've got to set the URL. So I set the URL to the file name star.png. And I'm going to set the background repeat, so the image doesn't repeat in the background, to none. Or actually, not to none, but to no repeat. Now, if you see that, you can see the stars are now overlapping the images. So I want to change that by changing the position of the star using background position, and we're going to set the background position to 0 pixels and 5 pixels. And then we're going to set the padding on the list items to 14 pixels. And there we go. We've got the bullets perfectly aligned. Now, if I increase this padding, let's increase this to 20, I increase the amount of space between the bullet and the element. If I change this background position, let's say I change this to, that should be pixels. See how that's dropped a little bit? That's a little too low. Let's try changing that to 2 pixels. That kind of centers it with the line. Let's try 1 pixel. Very, very slight adjustments. That looks pretty good. Now here, if I increase this one, let's increase it 10. See how it moves it closer? Let's only set that to, let's say, 3 pixels. And there we go. So now we have a perfectly positioned bulleted list using a custom bullet, star.png.